John Mitchinson from Rally Raid Products UK. Great to have you on MADTV. We go back a long way. 2011, you set up our KTM 690s to ride from London to Sydney. And then you came out to Australia in 2017, I think it was, about 8 years ago. Got your Honda CRF300 and rode it across the Simpson Desert. Probably the first person in the world to do that, I'd suggest.
Yeah, now that was a fantastic trip, and the Honda was great for it.
That was.
I know everybody thought I was a bit of a fruitcake riding a road bike, but I think it was the least touched bike at the end of the trip.
It was. There's a few 690s getting repair jobs from you. I remember that.
Yeah.
So, John, tonight we're talking about this unbelievable trip you've done. When I say trip, it's actually a series of little trips, and we'll go into that. 35,000 kilometres now?
Yeah, just coming up for that, yeah.
Trans European Trail. So you'd be the font of knowledge, contemporary font of knowledge about the Trans European Trail. And today it's a great pleasure to talk to you about your experience on riding this trail. So we're probably going to delve into it in a way where we go really simple first. It's to tell people what it's about. You know, this trail, that's amazing, that length of distance. How does it work? How did you get on it?
Well, it was when it was first sort of started talking about the Trans-European Trail, because it really came from the Trans-American Trail. And then John Ross, a guy here from the UK, and he was working with Adventure Spec, who sort of supported the initial development. And it basically works by having linesmen in every country. So each linesman is responsible for keeping the tracks updated and making sure they're legal. And it's an open source thing where people just pull in all the tracks from each country, and they've got it now to over 100,000 kilometres all around Europe.
100,000.
Yeah. So I haven't even got a third of it yet, but it's really good. You know, it's easily, they've got a website portal so you can download the latest GPX files for that country. It's completely free, but every time I go on a trip, they say, you know, just put a bit of money in the kitty, because like for last year, their total income was about £18,000. That's all, which sort of barely covers the cost of, you know, the admin of the site. But there's no subscription or anything. It is a perfectly free way of accessing GPX trails that are fully road legal for the whole of Europe.
So basically, here we have a really busy bloke who's time poor, and yet you've pulled off 30,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
Tell me the methodology, because I think that's really important.
It sort of started during COVID, Dave, you know, because we never stopped during COVID. In fact, at the factory, we were busier than ever because people were at home, and they obviously thought, well, I might as well get on and do work on the adventure bike. So our orders actually went up, but we couldn't go anywhere. So I had a lot of free time, and I think it was when the Trans Euro Trail, the tech was coming about. I thought I'd really like to do that, but I just couldn't. Every time I looked at it, I just thought, I've got to put the bike in a van and drive to Spain and then ride for 5 days or a week, and then I'd have to put it in the van and bring it back. So, and the further east you went, you'd be spending more time in a van or, taking the bike.
Yeah.
And then I just sat there one day and I realised that the whole of the tech route in Europe, it's never far from a main international airport. So I then broke it down. I just got a map of Europe on Google Maps, and I just pinpointed all the main airports and broke it down into sort of week-long sections of about 1,500 kilometres. And then I just thought, all I've got to do is leave my bike near an airport, put a rucksack, and come home, and then go back every 5 or 6 weeks and just keep doing a section. And that's sort of how it worked, you know?
Yeah, so it's amazing, efficient way to ride, and you're not worried about the bike, are you? Because it's not an expensive 1,200cc
No, well, the thing is, to be able to do this, you've got to, it only really works with a small, light, cheap bike with soft luggage, because you're going to rely on people that you've never met. Generally, I'm on a Facebook group, a tech Facebook, and I'll just say, look, like we're arriving in Sarajevo next week. Anybody got room for 3 bikes? And we're all on, there's 2 of my mates have joined me now, but I started off, just on my own, riding with friends that lived in the area. But there's 3 of us now, but we're all on Honda CRF300Ls for the reason mainly that they're cheap enough. We can afford, if they sit there for the whole winter for 6 months, it's not a lot of money tied up personally, but also people that you're leaving the bike with, they wouldn't want 3 bikes worth £25,000 filling up a garage of big bikes, whereas we just took them down. We've left them in car garages and just pushed them behind a stack of tyres and thrown a blanket over them and put them in wood sheds. That we really don't care, because the bikes just don't stand us. We even call them the wee donkeys, because we just throw them in a stable and that's it. So you do have to be able to do it really like we do, ad hoc, leaving them wherever. It needs to be an inexpensive small bike. Yeah.
So how much setting up for the bike to get it that's been reliable? Obviously the 300s are reliable, but getting them set up for you.
Yeah, that was the main reason I chose the 300, because at the time we'd got a few bikes. I've still got the KTM 690. We got the T7. What else? We got T7, and we'd got the BMW GT310. Well, I discounted the 690 KTM because I wanted something reliable. I discounted the T7 because although we'd had it for 3 years and it'd been bulletproof reliable, it's just too big and heavy for me riding solo on quite mountainous tracks to worry about picking up more than once a day. The G310 GS, I was nearly going to take that because Adam and Amy rode, when they came to Australia, and I used to love our little 310 GS.
Yeah, I think so. Cracking.
Yeah, but it was just because we just started getting the new CRF300, and I thought it'd be a really good test of all our accessories, so that's why I chose it. So we'd got a bike that had done only done about 1,500 miles, so we put our uprated suspension, which the bike definitely needs, even if you're going to ride it, let alone put luggage on.
Yeah.
So yeah, just upgraded the front fork cartridges, rear shock, a small rack on the back, and then I'll just carry a 4-litre Roto pack fuel, because the L model only has 7.5 litres of fuel, but the bike's doing nearly 90 to the gallon. It's doing 3.3 litres per 100 kilometres. So, fuel isn't massively important, but having the extra 4 litres in reserve, and I've only used it 3 times in 33,000 kilometres, so it's not been often.
Well,
and then just giant loop Coyote bag on the back and a bucking roll tank bag on the front. So I keep all my valuables up front, passport, phone, wallet and everything where you can see it. And then in the Coyote at the back, it's mainly spares, couple of inner tubes, because we're running tyres. We're running Michelin trackers, Michelin mousses. We've tried a load of other tyres, and I've spent the first year just testing tyres and mousses for a tyre company here in the UK, but we ended up coming back to the old favourites of Michelin trackers and Michelin mousses, because I can get 6,000 kilometres out of a rear tyre and mousse, and 9,000 out of a front tyre. But yeah, that was really the preparation, and just a GPS. I started off with my Garmin, but now I'm running a DMZ, and just keep it very compact, very simple. No boxes, no centre stand.
So a basic bike, well set up for your weight and luggage, and that's it. 35,000 kilometres. You started off with small steps. What were they? Where did you go first?
The first one was just a day's trail riding down to the Portsmouth, south of England, to get the ferry, the 2-day ferry to Spain, to start the Tet in Spain. But I was so excited, Dave, I'd only left the factory an hour, and then I filled the bike up with diesel. I was that excited. Yeah. So I had to, within an hour of leaving home, I'd got the tank off and everything, the fuel injector out, draining the bike. I just couldn't believe it, But no, that's it. Just got on the ferry, got a 2-day ferry to Spain, and then started the first section, which was in the Picos Europa. So that was 6 days, 1,700 kilometre loop up in the mountains. And then I left the bike with our lathe supplier, who they're Spanish and they're in Bilbao. So I asked them if I could leave the bike there, and they said no problem. And then they just gave me a lift to the airport, and that started the whole ball rolling then.
Wow. So how many kilometres do you try to shoot for a day?
250 we try on average. Yeah. So if it's very technical riding, like a lot of the northern Spain, Portugal, and some of the Balkan states like Albania and Bosnia especially, it was really got trials going, so you were down to sort of 160 kilometres, 170 a day, and that wasn't through lack of riding. That was doing 8, we put a full shift in every day. That's 8 hours riding, but the going is that you're in bottom and second gear a lot of the time, just trials riding, feet up on the pegs. But then some of the countries, I went to Morocco. There's no Tet in Morocco officially, but because I've done rallies there over the years, I kept all the road books. So I made myself a 3,000 kilometre loop in Morocco, and I went there with a friend of mine, Bill Ness from Alaska. So it's been the trip's been really good because I've been riding with different people. A lot of the legs, old friends, and people I've never met before. They're just in the area, so it's been quite good just to catch up with people. I keep offering you, but you never come over.
I'm coming. So on the Tet, so if you were thinking of doing this, does it grade the tracks for you? Do you know if you're getting into something you
no,
wouldn't know?
It really is. No, the Tet is really designed for single cylinder trail bikes. Something realistically, the biggest you'd want to be is on a 690 KTM. You can do we always say, every day you could do 90% of it on a T7 quite easily. But then every day there'll be 3 or 4 bits that you think, wow, there's no way I want to be on a T7. And even the CRF in places, we struggle to wiggle it through the rocks or whatever. So no, it's not graded, but it is primarily designed for big single, for single cylinder trail bikes. So if you want to take a maxi trail, a T7, a Aprilia Touareg, if you're a good rider, if you're experienced and you're in a group, then have a go, and you'll get through it, but you'll just have to probably drag it a little bit every day. But you're not going to have to worry as well about it getting damaged,
Okay, give us a quick summary of all the countries you've hit so far.
Okay, after leaving England, it was Spain, Portugal, Morocco, back to Spain, Sardinia, Italy, Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, Albania, Greece, Turkey, Georgia, and then we're now in Bulgaria.
Okay, so that's where you've been. That's a big suite of countries. Where are you heading next? How long is this going to go for now that the Tet's 100,000 kilometres?
Well, I could keep going for a lot longer, but I think I'll finish next year because we'll start heading back up towards the UK. So next year, we're going back in September. So we'll do Bulgaria. October, we'll probably do the Romania Tet and then park the bikes up for the winter. And then next spring, Hungary, then Poland. There's no Tet in Germany, Austria, no off-road riding. So probably once we've done Poland, I'll swing a left and start heading back across Germany through Holland. There's Tet in Holland, and then get the ferry back to the UK because I'll have probably done about 50,000 kilometres. But my other two friends, they joined me last year. I think they're going to carry on north up through Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway, on the tech up there.
So these two characters you've been riding with, tell me a bit about them.
Well, the latest two, I tend to burn through them pretty quick, and these have stuck with me for a year, so that they must be hardcore. But they're a couple of lads I used to do the rallies with. So Dave Salkeld, he lives on the Isle of Man, and George Dennison, he's from Northern Ireland, but he's living in London for about 30 years, so I just know them through the rally in Morocco and Tunisia over the years. And they've come to the same conclusion as me. You know, they're a bit younger, but they're just coming up for 60. I think Dave's actually 61, but you know, that we're not racing anymore, but we still like riding, and we still like doing long days. And the tech's been a brilliant way of extending our off-road riding and having the ability to leave the bikes means you can go further and further east. And within a few hours, you're back home. I mean, the best record I had was, I think I dropped the bike off in Barcelona, and something like 4 hours later, I was back at home in my kitchen. But when I first started in northern Spain, I rode with George originally and another friend, Kev Thomas. And then the second leg, I rode with a couple of Irish friends. Yeah.
Tell me some of the highlights. What are the things that, you know, it seems an amazing journey through those countries, so many different cultures, the landscape, the geography, the flavour of it.
It's just Europe, from one side of Europe to another. I know in Australia, you know, it's a massive distance, but we travel, and some days in a day, you're traveling through a different country, different language, different religion. It's not just topographically the country changes, you know, from fields to mountains to forests. And in some cases, we only know we've gone in, because you're in the mountains, there's no border. We've been crisscrossing, especially down through the Balkans, and you only know you've gone into another country because you see the number plates changed in the village on the cars, and then an hour later you're back in the original, you know. So,
wow!
But it's great. It's been such an eye opener for different culture, religions, food, mannerisms.
How have you found the people? How have you found
just fantastic? I mean, the further east we've been going, we're getting locals that stop and they say, "Why are you here?" And you say tourists, and they go, "Why?" Because no one ever comes. I mean, the last trip we did, we actually got to the Azerbaijan border.
Hang on, sorry, my dog is. Lily, are you serious?
Lily.
Yeah. Our next door neighbour. Our next door neighbour has bought a new jacket and zipped herself into it, and now she can't get it off.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Yeah.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
You've heard.
Hey, Dave, look.
Just look.
Trust me, I'm an engineer.
Yeah. Well, you can get out of yours.
I bought it for myself. I saw that and thought, that's me.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
All right, so we got rudely interrupted there. Question. So how have you found people? Has there been any nasty incidents, or what's it been like?
Not at all, Dave. Honestly, we've just been meted with kindness everywhere. And not even ridicule. People just some places just don't know what the hell. Why have you come here? You know, especially as we got further east, like Greece, and then into Turkey and into Georgia. And we got, you know, especially in Georgia, we got several times in the evenings, we even had the police come and look for us in the little village, because it's like there's 3 strange people in the village and they want to see you. And then it's passports and documents. And then like, well, why have you come here? And we just say tourists now. We don't even explain about the tech because they can't understand it.
Yeah.
We just say tourists, and they go, like, why? But why? They just don't get, they're just not used to people. And we got as far as the Azerbaijan border 3 weeks ago. And unfortunately, because of the war in Ukraine and that, we got turned away.
Yeah.
But again, we followed the south, and we actually got stopped by the border police because there's a bit of friction at the moment between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Yes.
But the guy from the border police just couldn't believe my little Honda had ridden, where have you come from? And I said, UK. And he said, no, but where? I said, no, UK.
Yes.
And the other two guys said, yeah, John has actually ridden off-road. And I showed him, and he couldn't take it in. But fortunately, one of the guys in the truck used to work in the Georgian embassy in Paris and spoke really good French, and I speak French. And I actually explained to him, and all he went was to his mates. He said, he's lost. He said he has. He said the old fella's done it. And he was explaining. They just all laughed, Dave. But honestly, we've had no problems leaving the bikes. In fact, some nights when we lock them up, we just put a chain on them.
Yeah.
The locals are really quite insulted. One guy really got insulted one night that we were chaining them up.
Wow. Yeah.
He said that was in Turkey. He said, "Don't put the chains on." He said, "Well, we're not gonna take anything."
No.
Because we don't go into big towns, because the tech tends to keep you in the countryside. So you're not going on main roads. And even when you're not off-road, the roads that you're on are very small, minor roads. So generally, we just stay in digs that are, we don't want to go 30 or 40K into a town. So we'll just find somewhere quite rural.
Yeah.
And
so does the tech give you hints as to accommodation? Because you're not camping, are you? And
No.
the second thing is, does it give you hints as to places where you can buy food or anything like that?
I mean, not really. They've started putting camping places, but it's really not worth it because we've got a really good routine now that works faultlessly. It's, we'll leave. We've always left by 8:30 at the latest. Yeah, we generally don't have a breakfast or anything because a lot of the places we stay don't do breakfast. So we'll just have a coffee and some sort of snack bar we've got in the rucksack, and then we'll hit the road, ride for a couple of hours, stop, get a coffee, a Coke, and a breakfast in a garage or a little cafe somewhere.
Yeah,
and then we'll ride, fill up with fuel, and then we ride till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we'll stop. Yeah, fill up with fuel again, and then we'll just go on booking.com or somewhere, and we average about 30 kilometres an hour. So what we do is say, well, in an hour and a half, we're going to be 45K down the tech, and you look on your GPS and you can find a little town or a village and then just go on the net. Because the brilliant thing is, Dave, even in the middle of nowhere in Europe or even in Turkey and that, you get 4 and 5G better than we get at home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because they've missed a complete. It's like Morocco. They've missed a complete layer of communication.
Yeah,
we went from landlines and copper cable, and now where they didn't do that.
No, they just went straight to satellites,
and they've gone straight to 5G, Dave. And all we do now is every time we cross a border, we just buy a €3 or €4 SIM card, and like the last one in Georgia, it was the equivalent of $4 for unlimited data for 7 days. Further east, everything gets cheaper the further east you go.
Well, it's funny, in the background there, you've got those mountains for Western Nepal, and that's 5G just about everywhere. It's unbelievable. You can be on a mountain, 60 kilometers from Mount Everest, and you've got 5G.
Yeah, it's been so. Like say accommodation. The guys have said if I ever write a book about it, it's going to be called Filter by Cheapest, because that's how we do the accommodation. But we've had some. We generally every trip we have a kitty, so we don't pay separately. We all just and we pay cash everywhere.
Yeah.
So, and we always average less than €200 a day for 3 people. So that's like $400.
Wow.
And actually, the last trip we averaged, so it was about €65 a day each. But on the last trip, we were below €50 because it's just, again, as you go farther east, you can get, if you stop for a coffee and a Coke and a sandwich, it'd be like €3, €4, and in the evening you'd get a really nice steak and chips or casserole with a beer and a bit of rice or whatever, ice cream, and that would only be €8 or €9. So it's really good.
What's some of your highlights? What's some of the things that were just breathtaking or just blew you away?
The top part of northern Spain is stunning, the Picos Mountains, and although I've been there several times with Liz on road bikes, doing the off-road took us through some really high mountain passes I didn't know about, so that was really nice.
Yeah.
But I would say the most consistently fantastic riding and scenery was down through the Balkans, through Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro into Albania.
Yeah.
It was very remote, very hard riding. I mean, really difficult in places. And then Greece was really nice, but for different, it was more populated. So the Balkans, it was very unpopulated, whereas Greece, the riding is sort of similar, but much easier to find food and accommodation.
Yeah.
Because the Greece tends to be always follow the coast, so you're never far from a beach resort or something. So in the evening, you could always find really good accommodation, really good food, and probably a swim.
Yeah.
And then Turkey was just amazing, but remote. We left the bikes over the winter last year in Istanbul.
Yeah.
With Selçuk, a guy we went to Dakar with, and he's got a KTM dealership. And then we went back in March this year, and we did one section south to Antalya on the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And then we had to do a double leg. It's the first time we've done more than sort of 1,800 kilometers. So what we had to do was 3,000 kilometer stint, 12 days, one hit to get from Antalya in Turkey to Tbilisi in Georgia to get a flight back.
Wow.
And Turkey was just amazing.
Yeah.
Just so remote. We even got in an earthquake one night in a little hotel. God. It was just, and what I personally like, the architecture and the fact that a lot of the time we're on the old Silk Road.
Yeah.
So there's so much history there, mosques, churches, Byzantine, and I spend a lot of time in the evening, Googling where we've been and looking at the history. Yeah. And it's fantastic. And these are places all three of us have said, you would have never come to these places without the tech and without a little motorbike.
Yes. Yeah. And how have you prepared for weather?
Generally, we just wear our normal gear, and we've only had 4 or 5 wet days. The whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have got waterproofs.
Yeah.
But they very rarely come out, Dave. Generally, the weather's great. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask this question. I think I already know the answer, but how have the bikes been? What mechanical issues have you had?
Well, apart from I filled it with diesel before I got to the ferry the first day.
Yeah.
Nothing. We've just, my bike, so in 33,000 kilometres, I've used one set of rear pads. I put a brand new X-ring chain on before I left the UK because the standard Honda chain's not much use.
Yeah. And
then I changed the chain at 20,000 kilometres in Greece and put a new front sprocket on. And that's it.
Wow.
I put an air filter in when we were in Istanbul. So it had done about, by then, it had done about 27,000 kilometres, and the standard paper filter looked like it had been tipped in a cement bag. So I thought I better change it. But no, we just changed. All I do is I do all the maintenance, because me other two mates would be the first to admit they're not mechanically minded.
Yeah.
So I often fly out myself a day or two before.
Yes.
And I just service the bike. So every 2 legs, we'll do an oil and filter change.
Yeah.
And we're running the tyres and mousses. So generally every 2 legs, we do a rear tyre and mousse, and then every other we do a front tyre and mousse.
Do you take those tyres and mousse with you? Or
fly with them on. Yeah, but we just lube the mousses, fit them to the tyres, and then shrink wrap the tyres and cable tie them together as a pair, and put a bit of rope around them.
Yeah.
So that makes it into like a little carry hold all, and then just book them on the plane as sports luggage.
Oh, right. Okay.
So for about €30, take them on. But I've never taken any hold luggage. Every time we fly out, I just go with all I take is a rucksack. And in the rucksack is my passport, wallet, GPS, 2 pairs of pants, 2 T-shirts, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything else we leave on the bikes.
So you leave your riding gear and helmet with the bikes?
Everything, boots, the lot.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and all we take, the 3 of us are all the same. So all we carry, clothing-wise, is the clothes we go on the plane with. So you just take a pair of trousers, like a T-shirt with a fleece for in the evening to walk around if it's a bit chilly, and a pair of shoes that screw up. So you'd wear them on the plane, and then when you get to the bike, you open the giant loop, take your riding gear out, put your plane clothes in, and then in the evening, they're your clothes for, just walking down to get a beer and something to eat.
Yeah.
The thing is, Dave, as every trip I've gone on, I bring stuff back that I don't use, because I started off with way too much stuff, way too much, and then you realise, well, what's the point in carrying? I never need that. So people get hung up too much on, like you meet people and they're worried about, washing clothes. Well, you can buy socks anywhere in the world. You can buy pants, just throw them away and go and buy a pair. Same with people do tend to overcomplicate it. You sit sometimes and talking to people, and they've nearly convinced themselves not to do a trip because they've overcomplicated it.
So with this trip, I mean, one of the key barriers is time, and
really,
you've managed that, haven't you? You're doing this in 10-day?
Yeah, 10-day. Yeah. The longest one we did was the 3,000 kilometres from Antalya in Turkey to Tbilisi in Georgia, but that was just a necessity because there were no international airports. But some trips we've even had in mainland Europe, some of the legs we've only done 4 or 5 days riding because it worked out really well with the airports. Well, generally they're like 7 to 10 days, so we have a day at each end to get there.
Yes.
And the rest of it's riding. And we literally, fly in. The bikes are somewhere near the airport, get the bikes, connect the batteries up, and boom, we're gone.
Yeah.
And if there's any maintenance, I'd fly in a day before and do it myself, because then I know I quite like doing it. Plus, it doesn't hold us up then.
So with the maintenance of the bike, when you shut down the bikes, after what is the procedure there? What do you do?
Just pop the seat and disconnect the battery.
That's it. Yeah. Because you're thinking there may be leakage from something.
They do. All the modern bikes, because they've got an LCD display. Yeah. There's always some little amount of current going somewhere.
Right.
Plus, I prefer to disconnect the battery, because then there's, the bike's completely dead. It's not from a security point of view. I just feel happier that if it's in someone else's barn, then they can't blame me if it burns down,
Right, yeah. Okay.
But we leave the keys with the bikes and everything, Dave. It's,
Yeah.
Some of the people, like the guy Andrew O'Hara, we just met him on the Facebook tech thing.
Yeah.
We were traveling down through Croatia and heading for Sarajevo. And the only two things we do, we book a flight out and a flight back.
Yeah.
We don't book any hotels. We don't pre-book we do nothing. We're really winging it.
Yeah.
So we'd got flights back from Sarajevo, and we hadn't got anywhere to stay. And I just, one night, while we were traveling, I just went on and said, anybody, in Sarajevo area? And we always get loads of replies. And there was one English guy. He said, yeah. And he said, I'm right at the end of the runway. And he was there during the war in, the 90s.
Yeah.
And he's retired there, and he's married a Bosnian woman, got a couple of Bosnian kids, and he runs a little trail riding enduro business. And it was perfect, and actually, we went out, we had a day's spare, so we went out riding with him in the hills above Sarajevo, where the old Olympic ski village was and everything.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic, but he couldn't believe what we were getting up on the little donkeys. He kept going up, they're all on EXCs.
Yeah.
And when we got back at the end of the day, he said, I am so surprised. He said, then those bikes are really gone up everything today. And he said, I thought you'd struggle. And I said, no, they just do it a little bit slower, but they always get up.
Yeah, they do. Very capable.
And he's, and I just leave the keys now. And I said, look, while I'm away, take them for a spin. And often we come back and people have bought some.
Yeah.
They've actually, because up until then, they'd sort of discounted them. But, last week we were at the ABR rally and we were talking with the Spanish enduro holiday people, and they just bought 8 CRF300s for that reason. He's got 20 EXCs.
Yeah.
But because a lot of their trails are on sort of fairly sensitive forestry areas.
Yeah.
Going through on the little CRF300, whispering along, you can get away with murder. Whereas if you've got 8 EXCs barking down the trail, straight away. I mean, we go through some of these mountain villages, and honestly, it's only the dogs barking that know you've been there.
Yes.
Because with everything standard, silencers, everything. Yes. So we just, to me, you that's brilliant that you can whisper through these little villages.
Yes.
And you are actually enjoying the ride. You're not worrying that the bike's going to break down or you're making a load of noise or, and that's another good reason to have a small, low-powered bike, because your tyres last longer, your fuel lasts longer,
But you got no worries. I mean, there's this hype with adventure, and in some ways I feel partially responsible for all the big bikes I ride, but that's not what this is about. I mean, my best ride has been on a Bajaj 220 in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
That's the most memorable ride I have.
It's horses for courses, Dave. We've got a CF450 moto here.
Yeah.
We've got a Cove with borrowing. So if the conditions are right, I really still like getting a big twin or something and ripping it up.
Yeah.
But for doing the tech trip and keeping it as low key, as cheap, and as easy to manage as possible, you really need something small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully this recalibrates many people's thinking about how to do adventure, because to me, this really excites me, because it's you get things done and you're quietly doing it, and these amazing experiences you're having. It's just brilliant.
Once you know the bike's there, once you've left the bike, say, I'd fly back from Barcelona and I've left the bike with somebody, it's a real pull then. As soon as I get home, I'm thinking, right, I need to get back there and get on the bike. Whereas if you're hiring a bike or whatever, you just think, I'll wait a bit longer, or you tend, but because it's your bike, it's bought and paid for, and it's there, your helmet's there and everything. All you've got to do. And the other thing is, because we only book single flights there, and then you book a single flight back from another desk from your end point.
Yeah.
The flights are dirt cheap. Generally, we only pay 50, 60 euros for a flight. So
Yeah.
There's no excuse to not go. No,
No.
it's just fitting it in around work.
Yes.
But I decided after the first year, I decided I wouldn't ride in December, January, and February because of the snow at the altitude in Europe.
Yes.
And also the first year, we rode in Spain in the summer, and it was not pleasant. It was 40 degrees, Dave, and it just takes all the pleasure out of it. And then also in Spain they close a lot of the trails because of the fires. So then so we now every year we park the bikes from December, January, February, and we also don't ride July and August. So now we parked them in Bulgaria 2 weeks ago. Yeah, we're going back in the middle of September to carry on.
So 2026, I saw a Facebook post there and I went, oh my God, where did that come from? What are you up to in 26?
Well, I thought I'll be sort of finished my tech thing next year in Europe, and I really fancied going to America. And I thought, I wonder if I could do the same thing in America, just buy a bike. But America, the trails are a bit more open, the TAP and the BDR and that, they're more open trails, a bit like Australia. And I just really still like riding the CB500. And then I was mulling it around, and then a couple of weeks ago, a New Zealand couple were looking to sell a pair of CB500s with 50,000 kilometres because they've just been travelling South America, and they're in North America, and they're on the last leg from Vancouver, South San Francisco. So we've done the deal, and we're going to buy them. So me and Liz will be heading off, hopefully this Christmas, and pick the bikes up. And my friend Jenny in San Francisco will be getting them ready for us. They'll need a service, but then we're going to probably ride down to Mexico and ride down the Baja Peninsula for 2 weeks, and then come back to San Francisco, park the bikes up, fly home, and that starts the whole North America, South America. So I keep rolling on.
In Australia, with the mining, I don't know if you've got anything like this in England, but we call people who fly in, fly out, we call them FIFO workers. Do you have you have a similar thing, fly in, fly out? No, you don't have it. That's what they're called. No. You're a FIFO adventurer. Fly in. Works.
Yeah, but it just works, Dave. The two bikes, I haven't paid a lot of money for them.
None.
The trick is you need inexpensive bikes that you can afford to be without, because you are going to be without them for a lot of time. So you've got to be able to sort of write them off in your head. But you also want really reliable bikes. You want frugal bikes, not just on fuel, but tyres. And the CB, ticks all those boxes.
Incredible.
I love the CB500, and Liz likes riding them. So for the two of us to start travelling around North America, they're a perfect bike.
They're perfect. I mean, the CRF300s are now up in Cape York, and they're demonstrating how bulletproof they are. So, yeah, two good bikes that are just bulletproof, no fuss, get the job done. Yeah,
that's right. Well, that's the plan. Is just to try and do the same thing for the next few years in North and South, North America, and then probably do go down and through South America with them as well.
I can imagine. I've got a good mate, Nosh, who you've met, and I reckon I could slip into Asia with Nugget. Do a similar thing.
Yeah. Trick is to buy the bikes, but if you can afford to buy, they've got to be inexpensive, and you've got to be able to sort of in your head write off the money, and also not be too precious that if you've got to leave them at the back of somebody's barn or something, you just.
Yeah, if you lose them, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, we've had a couple of people say, well, what happened if you get back and they've been stolen?
When you buy another one.
Get another. It's just a commodity, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a bottle of milk.
But that's how we view that. We call them the three wee donkeys because we just view them that they're just taking us on such a trip. It's going back to the Silk Road. You imagine these people on the Silk Road 1,000 years ago with a donkey. We say we're doing it on CRF300s,
Oh, I agree. Well, mate, it's been a great... It's been a great pleasure talking tonight, John, and wonderful, insightful discussion about not only the tech, but your approach to adventure riding, and truly inspirational stuff.
No, thanks. Nice to speak to you, Dave.